Right now is Right on Crime Executive Director and former U.S. Attorney Brett Tolman. Brett, thanks very much for being here this morning. Give us your assessment of this third indictment against Trump.
Maria, thanks for having me on. I read the indictment a couple of times. I've been in the grand jury hundreds of times. I've prepared affidavits and testimony, and I've prepared indictments, and I read this and I was stunned. I mean, this reads exactly how you would if you were politically motivated behind the charging document, if you drafted something that articulated the politics of the current state we have. That's how it read. It's an indictment against free speech, against legal theories. It's an indictment that includes co-conspirators. 6 of them, four are attorneys that advise the defendant in this particular indictment. 1 political consultant and 1 member of the Department of Justice. It is astounding to those of us who have drafted and worked in the same trenches to sit and watch and listen to an individual make the justice system seem as though there's legitimacy to such an outrageous indictment.
Well, it seems clear that this would go all the way to the Supreme Court if need be, but they wanted to get Donald Trump in front of a D.C. jury, because a lot of questions surrounded the last indictment because it was going to play out in Florida. And many people said it's hard to get all 12 jurors to agree to convict, but maybe it's not so tough to do so in Washington. But I'm trying to understand what the real crime is in this indictment. Are they saying that it was criminal for him to believe the election was stolen and say it out loud?
Yeah, Maria, it is difficult. You notice at the beginning of the indictment, it articulates that, the President Trump at the time could believe that the election was, rigged, that there was election fraud. He could have false beliefs about the election, but then they go on to literally indict him under statutes that are being manipulated. And you look at, for example, Section 241 conspiracy. That's a conspiracy, a civil rights conspiracy that in the statute itself says that it is they have to show a conspiracy to injure an individual who is trying to exercise their constitutional rights. That's the kind of legal wrangling that's going on in order to shove these facts, this narrative, into statutes that don't have application here. It's going to be a difficult case for sure, but make no mistake, in Washington, D.C., you've got a 95% conviction rate. Right. They're going to try to ram this through as fast as they can, and they have a judge that's going to be sympathetic, who's going to issue a quick sentence and try to incarcerate President Trump as quickly as possible.
Right. Well, and I don't want to ask you about the timing, but you're right. There are questions surrounding this Obama-appointed judge assigned to this case. Not only has Judge Tanya Chutkan ruled against Trump in the past, she's being described as one of the toughest punishers of the January 6th rioters. The AP reporting that Chutkan often handed down prison sentences harsher than what prosecutors even recommended. Todd, jump in here.
To follow up on Maria's overall point, and great to be with you again, Brett. It's been a moment. Supreme Court ultimately will likely hear this because, to your point, he's going to get convicted if this goes to trial, and the judge is not going to be sympathetic. So what is the precedent that will be set if and when the Supreme Court overturns what we are all viewing as an inevitable conviction?
Brett,
to you.
Yeah, I want to. It's a really good question, and I also want to ask about the practical timing of all of this. Brett, are you with us?
I can hear you. Hopefully you can see me now.
Yes. Okay. Go ahead, Todd.
Yeah, Brett, my follow-up question was the precedent that will be set. Will it be First Amendment precedent? Will it be, overzealous prosecution precedent? Because let's be realistic, Jack Smith does not have a stellar record, 8-0 or 0-8 in his regard in front of the Supreme Court. What say you?
Yeah, Todd, you're exactly right. I mean, this is a prosecutor who is, his track record is something to behold. You are well aware, we've all seen federal prosecutors have a high conviction rate But this is going to go up to the Supreme Court. They're going to decide whether or not they have the facts and the law to justify the indictment. And I think the Supreme Court will reverse what happens in the lower court.
Well, will we ever see justice in terms of the Biden family business? Hunter Biden's former business partner, Devin Archer, told lawmakers that Joe Biden spoke to Hunter's business partners more than 20 times. New York Congressman Dan Goldman dismissed the calls, said that oh yeah, he just joined the calls to talk about the weather. I mean, this is actually extraordinary from one of your colleagues, Democrat colleagues. Watch this.
It was all casual conversation, niceties, the weather, what's going on. There wasn't a single conversation about any of the business dealings that Hunter had.
Congressman, do you believe Dan Goldman actually believes this? Or is he just saying this for the cameras? I mean, to think of the notion that Hunter Biden is there in a room with his Chinese partners or Ukrainian partners, and Joe Biden just called for some niceties and to talk about the weather. Does he actually believe that, you think?
Well, I will tell you, never let the facts get in the way of a narrative that you're trying to push. This is outrageous, Maria and Todd. I'll tell you, when I see the left arguing that it was the